to do a serious one.
Yeah.
So joining you live from the World Championship 2023 in Barcelona, the Living Legend podcast.
I am recording now, by the way, so we can start whenever you want. Whenever you want, man.
There we go. We can start right now then. So welcome back to the Living Legends podcast. I'm your host for today. My name's Az from Go Again Gaming, and joined as always by some of my favourite folks in this fab sphere. We'll start off with Bill. How's it going, mate?
Hello, it's going pretty good. Very excited for our host and our boy Az. We'll have some pretty I don't know. I don't want to say like earth shaking, but it's like pretty crazy. I'm very excited for him. And that's going to be the main topic of today, is the fact that I am excited and proud of Az. But yeah, everything's been good. It's still very hot here in Canada, which it sounds like an oxymoron to most people that know anything about Canada. But yeah, it's been hot and then also thunderstorming. Interesting combination.
Yes, the Midwest U.S. combination, hot and also still thunderstorming. That's the Idaho, Wyoming kind of thing. Yeah,
exactly.
Before we introduce Kel as well, I've got a funny comment on the because we're going to be speaking about the Azalea deck that I spoiled today, actually. When you're watching this, it was yesterday. But going on thunderstorms, I started the stream with like rain ASMR, like Pitts rain ASMR. It said like the deck reveal is coming soon, and like there was like Pitts ASMR, and I love thunderstorms for that reason. Normally when I go to sleep, or if it's raining outside, I like to have a bit of white noise. I just find it relaxing. I love thunderstorms, but Kel, I think I know you do as well. So
I love rain, dude. I mean, yeah, it's the best. I live in Oregon. I live in the Pacific Northwest. I absolutely love it. My favorite weather is like, a lot of people find this depressing, but I find it very, very like cozy and comforting. I just feel really happy. Like 60 degrees Fahrenheit. Gray, overcast, and a little bit of rain, especially here in Oregon. When it starts to rain, you really the scent of the trees and like the greenery comes out. It just feels really fresh and really like bracing, and I really enjoy that. You can make yourself like a nice like hot coffee or tea and just kind of like read a book by the window with it raining. It's like the best.
It's like those little 8-bit
exactly,
loops that you with like your dog like on there looking out the window and all this. So yeah, I definitely vibe with that as well. And we're going to be speaking about a bit of rain today as well. This is stone rain in the background of where you can see
less pleasant
on my cameras. Great art from Mateus as well. This card doesn't quite destroy lands, but it does some cool stuff anyway, which we'll get to. But yeah, so long story short, I was just woke up on Saturday morning, and I checked my phone, as I do all the time, quite active on socials and stuff, and there was a message on Twitter or X from James White, and he was like, "Az, are you in Amsterdam?" And I was like, "No, sorry, James, I've committed all my sort of time, energy, and resources to going to Japan." And he was like, "Oh, fair enough. I wanted to give someone to give you the Azalea decks in Amsterdam so you can spoil the list." And I was like, "Oh, I can still do that.
Hell
you
yeah!
You can just give me the digital assets." And he was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, sounds good then. Here you go." So I don't know whether it was planned or whether he saw that I reposted the deck list that had the obscured cards. It had the Hidden Agenda and the obscured Stone Rain. And I was like, "Where are the other cards then? What are the other cards?" And then the next day he messaged me saying, "Oh, do you want to do it?" And I was like, "Yeah, all right then." And that's what we're going to be doing today.
I imagine it was something along the lines, because he's so busy. I imagine it was something along the lines of he's doing his own stuff, really, really busy. He might have seen your post and he was like,
maybe.
"Oh, what the hell? Why aren't we letting Az do this? He's the Azalea cult guy. We should just make him do this, like get him to do this." I imagine it was something along that lines where like he didn't realize it and it maybe just like clicked and he was like, "Oh, of course." Like,
yeah,
and so
obviously.
and so like, yeah, when I heard about this, when I saw this, I was like, duh, like, of course you let Az do it. Like, that's the person to do it. So yeah, Congratulations, by the way. Really cool.
Yeah, cheers, mate. It's definitely a first for me, being able to spoil a product to a certain degree, the full deck list as well, which we will go into a lot of detail on, because my original video, to be fair, when I did it originally, this is the content creator thing as well, right? If you get a card or something to spoil or whatever, I imagine you probably do 2 or 3 versions of the video that you want to release. That's what I do anyway. Like whenever I do a video, I'm like, oh, I'll do this one. Nah, it's rubbish. I'll do a different one. It's not that the first take I did was rubbish. It was just too long. It was like 22, 25 minutes of just rambling about a deck list. This is what this format's for: rambling about deck lists on a podcast.
Yeah.
So my second idea was, right, I just need to try and keep this under 10 minutes, just do like a brief, 10 to 15 second blurb on each card that's included, just as a nice and easy way, and a sort of evergreen video for people to click on and be like, oh, okay, this is the list, this is what each card does. And that's how I felt it turned out. So at this moment in time, you can still go back and watch the Azalea Armory Deck list video on Go Again Gaming, which is where I'm from, by the way, if you didn't know, as from Go Again Gaming. So it's all on there now, and I think James said that the list will be on FABTCG.com soon, because I think it's being previewed or early access at Gen Con, which is this weekend, I think.
Yep. It's available for purchase at Gen Con. I think it officially launches like a day or 2 after, something like that.
Yeah. So when I was talking to James about it, he said, "Can you get it out before Thursday this week?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course I can, no problem." So yeah, that was all done. And yeah, so yeah, I think it's doing pretty well. People are still watching it despite me giving the images on Twitter. People are still watching it, which is nice. And I'm also running a giveaway as well, because James, bless him, he's actually sending me 2 decks. He's sending me one for me and then one to give away as well. So yeah, you can still go back onto the video. Make sure you like, subscribe, and leave a comment on the video as to why you love Azalea and when you started playing the deck. If you haven't started playing the deck yet, that's fine. You can just leave a comment on there, just saying why you might want to play the deck, or why you might like the hero, for instance. And you got a chance of winning. So yeah, I thought that was cool too.
Hell yeah, man.
But yeah, that's pretty much going to be the topic of today's video. Has anybody else done anything else? I know we're all participating in my league as well, the league that means nothing.
Yeah.
But none of your videos have gone out yet, but they're due to. They're due to.
That's true.
Very soon.
I do think that inadvertently we did skip over introducing Kel.
Oh, I'm Kel. Hello.
Make sure things are all fair.
Hello. This voice is me. This is Kel. Red Zone Rogue. Hello.
I think I did say, speaking of Rain, going over to Kel. I think
you
I
did.
Maybe not.
You did. You did like it was like a soft intro, right? It wasn't like a hard.
Yeah,
my name is blank. You know.
Yeah. That makes sense too. Then.
But yes. Yeah. I haven't played my second round yet. The person I'm playing against is called like Knight something. I can look it up.
Yeah, so it's David Wallner, and he's playing Prism.
Oh, great!
Awakener of Soul. So you're getting some great gem luck here, Kel.
All right, I got like Teklovas in round 1, which is kind of a weird. I don't want to call it a hard counter, but a weird matchup with New, who wants to banish things, and then he gets advantage by playing those banished things.
That's true. Yeah.
And then just Prism. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it goes.
We'll see. But yeah, so there's a lot of videos going up for that as well. So going into this week in Flesh and Blood, I've always got a summit going on these days, which is nice. So the League That Means Nothing is carrying on. Next week, we are going to see Bill's game. We're going to see my game. And then we're also going to see another Riptide game as well. So we're going to be seeing 2 Riptide games, and then a Zen versus Reinar, which is you versus Ian. And then the week after that, or potentially next week, we're going to see Kel's game as well as another new game. So there's 2 new games which are yet to be released, which includes Kel's, and then some other ones as well. And that's going to wrap up week 1 before we start doing week 2 televised games. So loads of CC content. over on Go Again Gaming. Really enjoying it. And Roger Bodie, who played the Bolt-in deck, which we spoke about, was it last week or the week before? Last week, wasn't it?
I think last week.
Played a great game against Enigma, which you now can go and see, and everything that we said about the Bolt-in cards was pretty much spot on with regards to how well those equipments do in those games. And it was a great showcase of Bolt-in and all those equipments that we spoke about. So I think it's definitely going. If you're a fan of Bolt-in or just maybe want to see those cards in action, that's probably one of the best games to do it. So definitely go and check that out when you can. But yeah, just loving playing more CC at the moment. I think the league's a good way to do it and televise it at the same time.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
We do have one bit of like podcast news, kind of very big podcast news actually. And now that I think about it, the next couple episodes we should definitely lead off with the news just so people don't miss it. But okay, so here's the news. Here's the long and short of it is that we've decided to put the Living Legends podcast on its own official YouTube channel. The audio only version, nothing will change. It's literally just going to be the same. And we figured that we would like to kind of reciprocate that kind of thing on the YouTube side too. So instead of being on Red Zone Rogue, the Living Legends podcast will continue or will be on the Living Legends podcast YouTube channel. By the time that this video goes live, the channel will exist. This episode will also likely be on that channel as well. And we'll have links in the description to this video, as well as the description of the audio only version to that. And we're basically gonna simultaneously upload several episodes just so we have like this transitionary period of people coming from the Red Zone Rogue YouTube channel to the new Living Legends podcast YouTube channel. So we're probably gonna do like a simultaneous upload, maybe like the first I don't know, like 4 episodes or something like that, just so people know, and we'll keep mentioning it so people can like transition. So if you miss like an episode or so, it's no big deal. And if you go and subscribe to the channel, you will still have content coming out on that channel. Nothing else is going to change, so it's still going to be uploaded every Wednesday at 6 a.m. PST. For the Red Zone Rogue side of things, my Flesh and Blood content, whenever I feel like making it, also not going to change. This is purely just kind of like a YouTube algorithmically thing that makes a lot of sense to put the podcast on its own thing. And so we're gonna do that. It also makes it easier for us to, if we want to do extra stuff related to the podcast, we can put it on the channel. And it also makes it more of kind of like in my opinion, like a equal venture. As someone who has it kind of on his channel, it makes us more of like an equal thing. So it's going to be all of our things rather than just on my channel. So please go check it out in the description down below. Go subscribe to the new Living Legends podcast YouTube channel. That's our big news. It just makes a lot of sense in a lot of different ways, and should be fun. Yeah,
go and check it out when you can. That'll be great. Fantastic. It's all going to continue over there every single week, as we have been doing for the last God knows how long. 2 years now, is it?
108 episodes. Is this 108 or 109? I kind of lose track. I always have to go check. It's close to that, 108 or 109 episodes, not including the D&D session that we did. Also, that kind of stuff. If we do another D&D session, that kind of stuff will be on the new channel as well. Basically, anything related to the Living Legends podcast will be on the new thing.
Absolutely. But speaking of new things, look at that. That was good, wasn't it?
Oh yeah,
really good. Yeah.
100. That's 108 episodes of practice.
Smooth operator.
So yeah, we're gonna be talking about the Azalea deck today. I've just checked Twitter as well, and James White has retweeted the video deck listing and requoted saying, "Great rundown of the deck as." Fantastic. Yeah. Lovely old job. Cheers, James. Thanks for reaching out to me as well to do this. And glad I could turn it around for you and LSS and bring it out. And it's good stuff. So this is the Azalea deck list we're going to be going into now. Are we happy to go into this now? Imagine we could spend some time on it.
Definitely.
My favorite hero, Azalia, Ace in the Hole, has now has an armory deck. and within that armory deck has a few new cards, which were the two of the other cards that hadn't been released yet, were spoiled on yesterday's video, or today's video. Yeah, I think it's a really good deck. We can run down all the cards here, and what we think of those, because now that we have more context, we'll be able to sort of evaluate it a little bit better. Because I think we haven't really discussed it at length. I think there's just been a couple of cards that have come out here and there in between podcast episodes. So I think a good place to start would be the new equipments. So have you got the decks in front of you?
Oh yeah, I have the Fabry list up, and people will see each card as we talk about it. So I have there's Azalia. Obviously, her weapon is the Death Dealer, which is kind of her signature weapon, and it also comes with Crow's Nest as well, which is kind of like her other piece to her package. It's the Azalia Specialization Quiver that helps you put aim counters on arrows that are specifically put face up into your arsenal from your deck.
That's right. Yeah. So it is an aim counter matters deck. So a lot of the aim counter stuff that we've seen in the past will now get a lot more flexibility with regards to a lot of these cards, like sharpshooters and flight path in particular. I think one of the best cards in this list for aim counters and sort of aim counter consistency is sharpshooters, which is the new arms. But we can go through the. I think that's a good place to start. Actually, should we start with sharpshooters? Can you get that up, please?
Yep, sharpshooters.
So this is and I can throw it over to you guys to read out just ones in sequential sort of stuff. So sharpshooters is where we're going to start. So this is a Ranger Equipment Arms, battle worn, blocks for 1. So you can still block for 1 and be able to activate this later because it's not temper. So you can still get 1 defensive value out of it and still use the action which is on it, which is destroy this, put an arrow from your hand face up into your arsenal with an aim counter on it, go again. So the reason I really like this is because it gives you the flexibility to include a lot more aim counter cards in your deck that, even if you're running the Death Dealer Crow's Nest strategy, which is what this wants to do. It wants to run the Death Dealer, the gaseous bow known to man, rather than sort of Sandscour, Dreadbore, Redliner. You want to be using the Death Dealer because it draws cards. Everybody loves to draw cards. So Sharpshooters is a fantastic way of playing the same strategy, but having an arms piece that essentially says every single arrow that you draw into your hand can have an aim counter on it if you want it to have one. So things like Judge, Jury, Executioner, another card I got to spoil. Cheers, LSS, for that absolute honeypot of a card. If you draw that into your hand now, what you can basically sort of ensure is, okay, this has an aim counter on it then because of sharpshooters. As long as your arsenal is empty. But normally with Azalia, because you can look at top cards, you can switch out the arsenal with things. You can guarantee that your arsenal can be empty if you want it to be most of the time. So sharpshooters just turns on every single aim counter card if you draw it. Whereas before it was hard to get aim counters on things directly from hand. You either have to put aim counters on it through the use of other cards, which we'll get to in a bit, or you had to jump through a lot more hoops. Whereas sharpshooters just does it for you only once. If you could do it multiple times, that would be pretty ridiculous. But yeah, what do you guys think? Do you think I'm on the right lines of how good this could potentially be?
Oh, I think this card is very good. I think this is, very analogous to Bullseye Bracers, right? It does very, very similar things. The two differences are it doesn't get the +1 that Bullseye gives you, so it's less good with something like Bolt and Shot, but it synergizes, like I said, with all of the aim counter stuff. And then it has Battle Worn instead of Arcane Barrier, which Battle Worn on Ranger gear is exceedingly rare. So yeah, I think it's like very comparable. I think maybe sometimes you'll be running both. Like you might have one on your sideboard, and then you bring it in for certain matchups, and you bring this in for other matchups. Because like the Arcane Barrier is still really nice, and with Rosetta around the corner, it's probably going to be really, really relevant to have at least like, AB3 at some point. So like, yeah, I think this is good. And I think if you're playing like the whole, aim counter thing, it's really good. It does all the things that like Bullseye Bracers does very well, which is like, if you don't have a way to put a card like an arrow into your arsenal, this is just another way to do that. So
yeah.
And you also get all the aim counter stuff guaranteed. So yeah, good.
What's your first thoughts, Bill?
I really like it. I think that they've been kind of doing the Bolton thing, which we've sort of mentioned a little bit. Although like Azalea is already good, so not quite from that level. But for a while, the Bolton thing that they were doing was just continuously printing really strong cards like over and over and over again, until it's like, oh wait, I didn't even realize that they printed 20 incredibly powerful Majestics in a row for Bolton. Maybe he's good now. So I think that's kind of what they're doing, but specifically for aim counter Azalia.
Yeah.
Like that specific strategy. They're really pushing that line of play, because like we can see in this deck, they've reprinted Barbed Undertow, which is a really, really insanely good option if it has an aim counter. You obviously have things like what's the other card? Deadeye, which cares about having like aim counters. It's a buff that you're already playing because it's just a good buff. That's a yellow that blocks for 3. But you know, with this as your arms, you can have the second hidden mode that sometimes people like, I think, honestly forget about. You can have that be a real consideration on a push turn. Even something like Infecting Shot, just giving it the +1 in a situation where you just need to make this as awkward as possible for your opponent, can really be relevant. I think that like they're trying to make aim counters good, and I think they are succeeding. And Sharpshooters is just the support piece that sort of strategy needs, I think. Just a really easy, even just one-shot way to put an aim counter on something is very good.
Yeah, it's basically, if you put these sorts of things on equipments that just give you the consistency, like the bolting cards, as we mentioned before, you block with this, you get a Quicken, which filters into Bolton's ability. If you block with this, you get a Might, again, filters into Bolton's ability. You don't actually have to physically, put the aim counter on it with other means. You just got it in play straight away. Yep. That allows you to make more deck building decisions. So now Azalia players can be like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm playing Death Dealer strategy anyway. I'm just, going burr on my arrows. But what I can do now is I could potentially just include that one Judge, Jury, Executioner, which is a legendary specialization anyway. So you can only have the one. That is now always turned on when you draw it. It's insane. You can now think of running one Barbed Undertow in your deck, like this has. This deck has one Barbed Undertow. It also has one Red in the Ledger, which is a little bit of we'll get to that. It only has one Red in the Ledger, which is a weird thing, but I'm sure there's a purpose to it. I'm not the designer of the deck, so I don't know. But yeah, Sharpshooters, I think, just shores up all of those, all those sort of questions that we've posed before as to why do we care about aim counters, because they're really hard to get onto things. But there's a lot more cards in this deck with Line It Up as well, which we'll get to, which will put aim counters on things a little bit easier. But going back to the bullseye braces comparison, obviously you can still simulate a Bolton shot if you want to with the other card, which we do have, which is called Flight Path. Who wants to read this one out?
Let me pull it up real quick.
Yeah, I'll read it out. Absolutely.
Go for it.
Flight Path is the boots.
Right.
So yeah, these are the Ranger equipment legs with, again, Battle Worn 1. Ranger stuff just isn't exploding on contact anymore, which is interesting. And it's kind of just a not bullseye bracers, Snapdragon Scalers. It does attack reaction, destroy this, target arrow attack with an aim counter, gets go again. Which is intriguing. I'll say specifically, again, like building into the aim counter shenanigans, I think is going to be quite good. The one consideration that I can see right now is the deck as they've printed it. This is honestly kind of just worse than Snapdragon Scalers, because all of the arrows, all of the attacks in this deck cost 1 or less. So if you were to replace it with Snapdragon Scalers, obviously you wouldn't have the one Battle Worn. That is obviously a plus of this over Snapdragon Scalers, but you'd be able to give any attack go again if you needed.
Yep.
So it is a little bit, I would say maybe a little bit more awkward, but again, one defense has changed a lot of things. One defense does make a difference. So, yeah, I find it intriguing. I don't know how frequently you're going to need to go too wide with something like this, but I do think it's possible, obviously. Like there are those hands where you just get a blue and 2 attacks and you're like, okay, cool, let's do it.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is. I think Flight Path. The reason why this could be really, really good in these decks is because sharpshooters exists. So you could basically simulate the same sort of thing as a bolt and shot turn with bullseye, because with bullseye you crack it, you put a bolt and shot in, and it gets +1. So it's therefore got go again. You need 2 pieces of equipment to simulate that same thing. You put something in with an aim counter, which is going to be considerably better than bolt and shot most of the time. It's going to have an aim counter on it, and it's going to be like a barbed undertow or something. You fire that and give that card go again instead, and then the follow-up could be even worse. But it costs 2 pieces of equipment to do that line rather than 1. So it could be, you could look at it either way. It could either be really good. It could, the ceiling is a lot higher, but it could be worse because you need the aim counter on it. So I don't know how to describe that. It's high ceiling but lower floor. Is that how you say it? I think. Yeah,
I would say so. It has a wider range of what it's. Yeah, but yeah, I think I agree with that too, because that's the thing as well. Like, you want your things to have aim counters. And so with that being the case, this is similar to Dragon Scalers. Yeah. If you're really leaning into aim counters, then like if you're wanting to put aim counters on your stuff, then this is just Snapdragon Scalers with +1 defense, which I think is really good. Like, don't get me wrong.
And if you want to utilize it for that, purpose, you're actually getting 2 block because you're running the sharpshooters as well, because that blocks 1 as well. Yeah. So you're getting 2+ armor by running the different combination. Harder to pull off, and you have to sacrifice both at the same time to get the same effect. But that effect is probably going to be better. So it's just more. I think it's just more spiky if you run it that way. But also another cool thing as well about Flight Path is it says target arrow with an aim counter on it gets go again. So one thing you can do with this, you can give a battering bolt go again. You could not do that with snappies. So that's another, because battering bolt is definitely in a lot of Azalea lists at the moment because of Illusionist, Prism specifically, I think, because of Phantasm, Popper, and all that. So if you put an aim counter on battering bolt and you give that go again with Flight Path, that's a big amount of value. So yeah, you could do that also. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, what do you think about Flight Path, Kel? Do you think it's all right?
Yeah, basically everything you guys said. More situational Snapdragons, but with Battleworn. Battleworn's actually kind of a big deal. Having armor for Rangers is actually kind of big. Previously, you'd have like no armor at all. You'd have like, you can throw your tunic and your hat in when you're about to die.
That's it.
And that's it. You can't really use it like in a good tempo way, but you can use these in like good tempo ways. And what I mean by that is you can use them to block on hit effects early on to give you like this incremental advantage, and then crack them for their abilities later, which Ranger just never had. You just couldn't do it. So yeah, I think they're good. And I think this, I'm going to segue this into another piece. I think this actually works decently well with the hat, the target's totalizer, which is still a little iffy in my opinion. I'll read out what it does. So the target totalizer, it's a Ranger equipment headpiece. This one has no block at all. It says action, destroy this. Whenever an arrow with an aim counter hits this turn, draw a card and go again. And we talked about this on the podcast previously, and we talked about how it's kind of a hard sell. Like, how many cards would you like to draw from this to make it like worth running over something like your Skullbone Crosswrap, for example? And in my opinion, you need to draw at least like 2, hopefully like more, and drawing more than 2 is going to be really hard. But the Flight Path at least helps you get to the point where you can draw 2, right? Flight Path and Sharpshooters make it so you can kind of do like a 2 2 arrow whammy. If you do like some shenanigans with Crow's Nest or any other thing that puts a aim counter on, you have that guaranteed aim counter from sharpshooters. You have the guaranteed go again from flight path, so you can potentially set up a turn where you can at least draw like two cards. Reminder, they have to hit. So that's also another like kind of iffy thing, but in that case, your opponent probably just dumped their entire hand, which is like not too bad either. So
yeah, you have to hit, and then you have to be able to follow up with the cards that you draw. So if you've already activated your bow, if you've already put something in with sharpshooters, how else are you getting something into your arsenal to fire again after that? So yeah, I think in the wider sort of CC deck lists and stuff, I think Target Totalizer is probably going to be lost to the Skullbone Cross Wrap.
Yeah,
but I think in the context of this deck on it, and how this deck wants to play, I think it's great in this deck. If you're just getting this out as a new player and playing Azalia for the first time, it does have some utilization where you just crack it, and whenever an arrow hits with an aim counter, you're going to be able to replace your arsenal. You're threatening an arsenal. You're doing that sort of stuff. You're probably not going to be popping off that much with it, but it's just saying if this hits, I get to at least draw a card, an arsenal card, which is great for things like Line It Up, which we'll get to later. So yeah, I think in the context of this deck, it's good, but in the wider Azalea deck list, I think you still want Skullbone, to be honest.
Yeah,
because this deck also has. You don't have Skullbone in this deck, but what you do have is you do still have a lot of ways to manipulate the top of your deck. There's a lot of Spire Snipings in here. There's a lot of other ways to manipulate the top of your deck, which we'll get to. But yeah, so I think the deck's kind of compensating for not printing the Legendary by putting more top deck manipulation in.
Yeah,
So
I think the big thing that holds the Target Totalizer back is it being an action and not being an instant or a reaction. If it was an instant or a reaction, it'd be like feasible, but the fact that it's an action, it's telegraphed, your opponent can prepare for it, block it out, make it kind of like not do much on a turn, especially if they plan on blocking out anyway. I think that's what really kind of kills it. But like as you said, for like a starter product kind of thing, it's fine, I guess, with the deck. Yeah.
This next one's really interesting though, because this was released. Revealed, I should say, today when I did the video, or yesterday when you're watching this. Was Hidden Agenda. So this was a new chest piece, and it says doesn't block for anything. It just says Arcane Barrier 1 first of all, and it says instant speed. Turn a face down arrow in your arsenal face up. Gain a resource at the beginning of the end phase. Destroy this. So it does have some applications. I think you just run this as your chest in a wizard matchup. You run your bullseye bracers, your Hidden Agenda, your Null Rune boots, and your Skullbone Cross Wrap for AB4, and you just play your gas Azalea strategy.
I mean, I can see it just running in like Snapdragons for boots and do AB3. But anyway,
you could do. Yeah, AB3, but you could do AB4 if you really wanted to. With Rosetta coming out, maybe this could be more relevant than what it looks at the face. So I guess we'll find out very, very soon. But yeah, that's a new card as well, Hidden Agenda. The turn a face down arrow in your arsenal face up to gain a resource. I guess that could be utilized quicker than a Tunic resource, because you can get your arsenal established and get that resource early on in the game. But I think over the course of a long game, you do want to be using Tunic rather than this. In the context of this deck, though, it can help with a card called Point the Tip, which cares about having a face-up arrow in your arsenal to put an aim counter on something. So in the context of this deck, it might be okay as the chess piece, but a wider metagame at large, it can turn something face-up for a new horizon to reveal another arsenal zone. But apart from that, I just won't know what else it could be used for apart from the AB slot in the chest. What do you think about this? Bit of a weird one, I think.
I think it's a super weird one. It could be actually pretty decent in... It could be, depending on what the build looks like, it could be decent in Riptide, honestly. Because of his ability to basically reload whenever you play a card from your hand. So you could potentially chain 2, 3, maybe on a really good turn 4 cards, and just keep flipping stuff face up. Obviously, you'd need like card draw and go again and stuff like that, but like could be interesting. I think what you're saying is pretty accurate, though. I think this is like you just play this as your Arcane Barrier chest piece.
Yeah.
If you don't think that you need the tunic in your game. It is a bit of a weird one. I can see where they're going with it. And I do like the design of like it could potentially give you more than one resource on the turn that you use it.
Yeah.
But yeah, a bit of a stranger one for sure.
I mean, yeah, what you said about because this is the Azalea deck, but obviously we're speaking about it in all aspects, and there will be some Riptide implications for some of the other cards in this list later. But yeah, I think you could, because you could reload multiple times, you can then flip this up multiple times. It doesn't say once per turn instant, it just says instant. So like you say, yeah, you can, if you play a premeditate, reload a bolt and shot, flip that face up, gain a resource, play it, then play another card from hand, reload the other one, flip it up, gain another resource. But then you need more cards to do with those resources. So I don't know how you would maybe make the use of that. It's just quite...
It's
it's
a weird one.
Weird one.
I really like the art. Art is by Mario Wibisono, who is an artist who I mentioned actually when James was on the podcast doing our interview. I mentioned this because this artist is an artist who did work for Legend of the Five Rings. And so I guess they're working with him a lot more. It's really cool art. If you are just listening to this and aren't watching it, it's this character in metrics, kind of like really, really high up because they're looking down upon all of like the neon lights. It's very, very cyberpunk, actually. You can mistake this card for something from actual like Cyberpunk 2077 because it's a person in like combat leathers, like skin tight combat leathers, who's wearing like this rainbow sheened cloak, and they have like this kind of I'm going to describe it as a Winter Soldier mask. It looks like the mask of the Winter Soldier wears in like when he's first introduced in Marvel in the movies. So art looks really cool. The card that immediately this reminds me of is Trench of Sunken Treasure, which is the other Arcane Barrier chess piece that also has a arsenal shenanigan thing to gain a resource. And I'm looking at Hidden Agenda and I'm like, would I run this over Trench? And I'm like, I don't know. I actually don't know, because Trench gives you that Arcane Barrier 1. Trench also has Blade Break, and Trench has a once per turn instant of you put a face down card from your arsenal on the bottom of your deck and you gain a resource. So you don't get to use that card, but you can do that like every turn if you want for whatever reason. Like, and this one is like the real downside of this one is what I'm getting at is after you do the effect, it's gone, right? You can do it for the whole turn, right? Because it's destroyed at the end of the at the beginning of the end phase. But once it's gone, you don't have that Arcane Barrier anymore. And so if you're playing against a wizard and you crack this early and you're down to like AB2 or something, that's not great. So like, I don't know. I'm sure there's like other pro-minded players who can evaluate whether they'd run Trench of Sunken Treasure or Hidden Agenda in the sideboard, which one's more optimal. But that's my comparison to this card. And Trench, by the way, is the legendary, but it's only like $10. I just looked it up. So, yeah. So yeah.
No, I didn't think about the comparison with that. Yeah, definitely. But yeah, I'm sure the pro players will figure out whether it's worth using or not. But we'll see. That was one of the new cards that was hidden behind, no pun intended, the other cards in the graphic.
But I will say options are good, just in general for the game. Having the ability to choose between the two, I think is actually just good in general. So there's that. Yeah.
Absolutely. And now we can move into the list at large. But I think we should maybe just touch on the new cards or the cards that were new as part of this deck. And the first one was which was revealed yesterday was Stone Rain. So who wants to read this one out? This one's quite spicy.
I'll go ahead and read Stone Rain. I have it up right now. So Stone Rain is a 0-cost 4 attack Ranger Action Arrow Attack. It blocks for 3. It is red pitch, and it is one of the aim counter cards. If it doesn't have an aim counter, it doesn't do anything other than attack for 4. If it does have an aim counter, it does a whole lot. So if it has an aim counter, it gets Dominate, and when this hits a hero, they banish face down a card from their hand. At the beginning of their next end phase, they return it to their hand. So this is really interesting, actually, because it reminds me a lot of the Illusionist card that also does something similar, where they have to like get rid of a card for the turn, but they get it back at the end of their turn, which is kind of cool. I actually kind of like this effect. It's kind of like a pseudo discard, and the fact that they get it back at the end of their turn can make things a little awkward, right? Because then they have to sit on it for a whole nother turn cycle. So I don't know, it's this kind of way to like get a card out of your opponent's hand. I'm a big fan of that just in general. I think Flesh and Blood kind of might need more effects like that. And the art, for those of you out there, is kind of like this bluff. Like it's by bluff I mean like the geological feature of like these rock formations, and at the top of it, it's like the rocks are exploding, shooting shards down. So it's kind of cool. It's kind of cool. So. Yeah. Zone Rain.
Pretty sick card. Obviously, it needs a name counter to get those things as well. But as we've already discussed to a certain degree, we already have an aim counter giver in the arms now. So it just depends on, I'm sure a lot of people will figure this out, the people that are playing at a high level, as to how many you include in these of these aim counter matters cards in an Azalia deck. Riptide has some cool iterations where obviously he can reload a card into his arsenal, and then if he's running Barbed Castaway, you can actually pay a resource to flip this card face up and put an aim counter on it. So you're essentially paying to put it on there after the reload effect has happened. I think that's what Barbed Castaway says. You pay 1 at instant speed to turn something up with an aim counter on it. I think so.
Yes.
That sounds right.
From memory. And then you can also put a card from your hand into your arsenal face up for 1 resource also.
As someone who last used that card well over a year ago in Outsiders Limited, that sounds right.
That sounds about right, yes. Yeah, that is correct. Yeah, you may put an arrow card from your hand face up into your arsenal for 1 resource, or you may turn a face down arrow in your arsenal face up if you do put an aim counter on it. So I shouldn't have doubted myself. I was correct the whole time. But yeah, so yeah, Riptide can access that without having to put aim counters on things through the bow. Azalia could use Barbed Castaway as well. And to be fair, she does have a Barbed Castaway in the Outsiders Blitz deck.
Yeah, that's really funny.
Which is quite funny. But yeah, I think it's a cool card, and the effect is clearly very strong. You don't have to dominate it through Azalia's ability. Riptide also doesn't need to dominate it through other means. You just need to get an aim counter on it. So that could be interesting to see which ranger makes the most use out of this.
Yeah.
But
I mean, this is
cool effect.
This is a card that's begging to be pumped, right? This is a card that's just like, give me an aim counter and like pump me, like put some like lace me with some stuff, and I'll go to town. I think it's you know what? Now that I think about it, I thought it was pretty good. I think it's actually pretty nasty, in a good way. I think this card's like, if you can like pump this up, give it a name counter, make it like a 7 or 10 attack dominate that also has like other on-hit effects. I don't know. It seems pretty gross. And then this effect is also gross because it just gets a card out of their hand, which actually synergizes with the dominate because they can't just throw it all under the bus. They literally can only block with 1 card from their hand with dominate. So it does force a card out, which is good, and also does damage. Yeah, this card's pretty good. How many are in the deck as? This is a full play set?
3 of, yeah.
Okay, this. Good.
Also, with the way inertia works, so let's say you lace this with inertia. It goes to the end. It goes to the end. It goes to the end of their turn. They can choose the triggers, so they don't have to. So they say, I'm trying. Is that what I'm trying to get at? The banished card.
So I have inertia here. Let me pull it up. I'll pull up inertia. Inertia reads.
You would trigger inertia, and then you'd get the banished card back to your hand. So you'd actually save that for Arsenal, is what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah,
you'd be able to do that.
You do inertia first, yeah. At the beginning of your end phase, destroy inertia, then put all cards from your hand and Arsenal on the bottom of your deck. Yeah, you do inertia first, and then you do the trigger from the
Stone Rain.
Stone Rain, yeah.
Yeah, so it does protect you from inertia then, which is if you've been stone rain the turn before, if you have an inertia also, the inertia doesn't matter as such if you've got the one card banished from stone rain. But if you're doing that anyway, you're probably having a very strong turn anyway, because they're not going to be able to do much with that. So, yeah.
Slap a blood rat on this. Give it a nice little blood rat. Yeah, that'd be nice.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
So that's a pretty sick card.
Yeah, I think that there's a card that we have discussed already that is new in this deck, Line It Up, is just kind of a disgusting combination with this. Like you have Stone Rain face down in your arsenal, you line it up, give it +3, turn it face up, get a name counter on it, and then it's just a 0 for 7 that with Dominate that also rips an additional card. Basically, like it's kind of like a mega Intimidate because they don't get the card back right away. Like it could be, you know, a card that they really wanted to keep around, or it's like, oh, I really like, I just want to block with this card to get rid of it, but then it stays around for an additional turn. So either they go to the turn where they finally have this card in their hand. Either it was a really good one for the hand that they had at the time, or maybe it's still just a good card, whatever. That's like the worst case scenario for the Azalea player. Or it's a card that they really didn't want anyway, that is now still in their hand that they have to try to get rid of a different way.
Yeah.
So what's the on-hit effect of Deadeye again? It's a discard effect, isn't it?
It's look at the opponent's hand, choose a card, and they discard it or something. It's a really good discard effect. Yeah, so it's your next arrow attack gets +3. If it has an aim counter, it gets when this hits a hero, look at their hand, choose a card, discard it. Like,
bro, okay. So like you line it up Deadeye and then shoot the stupid thing for 10 Dominate with like 2 cards ripping from their hand. It's pretty gross. That doesn't seem like that hard to line up. Pun intended.
No, exactly. And the way that this deck is composed, it feels like LSS are like, right, okay, if we want Azalea to be the disruptive control-esque style deck, because she does do some disruptive things at the moment, but this could disrupt like a lot of different things. Discarding cards from hand, banishing cards from hand. You know, it seems like with the aim counter stuff, they are really pushing her in that direction to be the disruptive deck rather than numbers plus disruption of Red in the Ledger. That seems to be what it is at the moment, is numbers plus Red in the Ledger and Dominate equals what she's doing at the moment. But this seems more hyper focused on the disruption. Because then if you add things into the mix like Barbed Undertow, again, that's a very big form of disruption which doesn't care about the actions per se, but it can still target a guardian, or it can still target a different form of disruption for those heroes that don't care about actions, you know. So her toolbox is just getting larger and larger, and I think the toolbox element of a hero can really target certain metas or certain heroes that they want to disrupt, which is good.
How many copies of Line It Up come in the deck?
3.
Sweet.
3 lineups. Yeah.
Sweet. And I guess we should just mention the stats and Line It Up real quick because we just talked about it. But it is a 1 cost. Yeah. It is a yellow pitch, and it does block for 3. So like, it's just really, really, really good, like all around.
Yeah, like I was saying when it first got revealed, those are the same stats. Like it's a yellow, costs 1, blocks for 3, action with Go Again that pumps by 3. That's the same stats that Deadeye has, and people were playing it because it's just good, without worrying about the fact that like, oh, it has an additional effect. Sometimes it's relevant. Most of the time it really isn't, at least from my experience with it. But yeah, this like giving an aim counter is also kind of like a sometimes thing, but with these additional support pieces like the equipment and whatever, I think that's like less of an if and more of a when, and you can like choose when you want to have something to have an aim counter, especially with sharpshooters. So I think this is all like
that sharpshooters is just ridiculous because you can choose when your hand lines up, no pun intended, as to what you want it. If you drew a blue and you've got Line It Up and Deadeye well, you don't even need to have line it up. If you just have another 0 cost buff, you put the thing into your arsenal with an aim counter, with sharpshooters, or if you do have the line it up and your resources do allow you to do it, you don't have to use sharpshooters. That's the thing. You just got more ways of drawing cards that can put aim counters on things and just do disgusting control stuff. Or if you need to lean upon it, you can do the sharpshooters thing, which is what we were saying earlier about the flexibility and the choice now that you have to include these payoffs just gets larger and more likely for it to happen. Judge, Jury, Executioner doesn't come in this deck, but that's a disgusting card as well. All that needs is one aim counter on it, and you discard all but one card from the hand if it hits.
I hate that card. I hate that card.
So,
like that Judge Judy plus like Deadeye is like, I hate that.
Oh, disgusting.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's just pure disruption. And now that we have the sharpshooters, that's why I mentioned in the video that I did that I think sharpshooters is the MVP, is because it just allows you to draw that. You know, your one of Judge, Jury, Executioner is now turned on at all times if you run sharpshooters. It doesn't matter whether you draw it. You know, the only way you would not be able to get it is if you arsenal it. If you arsenal Judge, Jury, Executioner, but then you can still have line it up in the deck, which turns it face up and gives you an aim counter anyway. So all those eventualities are now accounted for in this deck list. So
yeah, I think if you don't have Deadeye and Judge Judy, you should probably go get them, because I have a feeling they're gonna, whatever price they were at before, they're gonna be more than that. I feel they probably already are, because since this is like a day late. Yeah.
Judge Judy is such a good one too, because you only need one. That's it.
Exactly.
It is a legendary specialization. Yeah, you can only have one of them, which is good because God, that card is like so backbreaking, especially against like aggro decks.
But then
I think it's funny, the combination of aim counter Judge Judy plus Deadeye is just your opponent discards the hand.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Yeah, it is like brutal because you just stack it in such a way that you trigger Judge Judy first, so they discard down to 1, and then you just get the last card with the Deadeye. Yeah,
that's disgusting.
Pretty good.
But another funny thing about this is, and this deck as well, is that LSS did include a one-of Memorial Ground yellow.
Okay.
So what that means is with all of these aim counter synergies, all of these aim counter payoffs, all of these aim counter consistencies that we get from just playing our deck, what we can also do now is put the cards that we've already played with aim counters back on the top of our deck with Memorial Ground. If we've established our arsenal, what we can then do is activate Azalia, put the card back into the arsenal with Dominate, pay through the Crow's Nest to put another aim counter on the fucking thing, and then shoot it again.
Yeah.
With an aim counter on it again because of Crow's Nest. So you've also got that ability as well, and LSS have clearly pointed this out with Memorial Ground being included, is that you can put it back on the top of your deck and still give aim counters to it. So if you play cards in this deck, that also is a way of making sure that those cards, once they go to the graveyard with things like Memorial Ground, can be put back on top of your deck to get an aim counter on it again through that cycle as well. So that could be another hint as to how they want to play, or how they want you to play Azalia, is to cycle those disruptive effects like the Azalia decks of old used to do, is spam Red in the Ledger with Memorial Ground over and over again. So yeah, it could be leaning on that also, which is fun.
But if you don't know, Memorial Ground is just a 0 cost instant. You can put an attack action card with cost. This for the yellow version, 1 or less from your graveyard on top of your deck. And the yellow version, like I said, is the one that is included in the deck.
Yeah, so that's fun. But another thing that was reprinted in this deck was 3 times Knock the Death Whistle.
Okay.
And that's got a new border as well. So this is an interesting point, is that both Knock the Death Whistle and Red in the Ledger, which were reprinted in this deck to varying capacities, now just have a Ranger border. They don't have the Pits border anymore.
I don't have the version. I don't have those versions on February. They're the old versions. So.
Are they?
Yeah, they're the ones with the Pits border.
I see. Okay, well,
let me see if there's. Yeah.
I guess they wouldn't have the assets that I've got yet. That's probably why. But if I just copy these over very, very quickly to the Living Legends podcast chat live, you might be able to throw these in quickly. Who knows? But that's what they look like for us internally. If you want to have a look at those, but both not a Death Whistle and Red in the Ledger now have a Ranger border. So yeah, which is interesting. I don't know whether that's I'm not sure whether we saw that on. Did we see that on any Bolton cards?
Oh,
did
weird.
Lunar Ascension have?
They look weird.
Weird.
Yeah,
what the hell?
Strange.
Hold on.
Yeah, I'm gonna look up the Bolton ones.
The visual thing might cut out for just a second. Hold on. I'm gonna try to.
Let's look up like.
Well, so the thing is with the Bolton, I don't think. Oh, there we go. Okay, this is gonna work. Okay, hold on. Let me pull up both of them. I'll have to resize it a little bit, but just give me a second so people can see. Yeah, it's just really weird. It's just really weird.
Lumina Ascension didn't have a different border than Light Warrior stuff because it has the same. I looked up Lumina Ascension and it brought up both Lumina Ascension and Spirit of Irina because it lists specifically Lumina Ascension. They have the same border. So I think this might be the first time that that's happened. And yeah, these look weird to me. Like especially Red in the Ledger with the regular Ranger border looks very strange.
That's yeah. So yeah, at some point they started to just put the regular border on all of the specializations, which I'm not a big fan of. I really like the flavor. I understand why, so you can recognize it as an attack or a card from that particular class. But flavor wise, I really liked the border, how it like helped show like, oh, this is their specialization, and it kind of like synced up with the heroes border, and I just really like the flavor behind it. And yeah, this Red in the Ledger is supremely weird.
It just looks wrong.
And I think the weirdest part is you also said there's only one of the Red in Ledger in the deck, right?
That's right. Yeah, only one of.
That's a huge bummer, but also that means like if you are out there trying to get like singles, you're probably gonna have one Red in the Ledger with this border and like two with the other border. Because I imagine these ones are gonna be a little bit harder to get because they only come in this product in a one of. And so when you're buying the deck and upgrading it, you probably will definitely want to get your two more Red in the Ledgers. They're gonna have the other border because those are probably be the ones that are more available. It's funny.
That's really funny.
You know, just to have mismatched Red in the Ledgers. Weird.
That's funny. I mean, it's a couple of people have already mentioned in like Azalea circles that I sort of roll in as to why LSS didn't include 3 Red in the Ledgers. It's a valid argument because, you know, a lot of people know Azalea and have been playing Azalea for the longest time sheerly because of this card. You know, we all saw the power of it early on. Was like, oh yeah, it's probably if not the strongest still to date, the strongest on hit in the entire game, bar a few Guardian cards. But you know, this is the reason why people wanted to play the deck was, you know, this art, for instance, is just pure domination. You know, pulling this bloke back by his hair with an arrow through his chest, that's just great vibes. But also the one action per turn is just it's just a great on hit. So including one of in this deck seems a bit strange, but also I can see why, to a certain degree, they've also given you the polarity of like Barbed Undertow, because Barbed Undertow can still act as like a Red in the Ledger against other heroes that are not aggro heroes. So if you're facing like a Guardian, for instance, you hit him with Red in the Ledger, that does nothing against a Guardian. So maybe they're sort of, that's why maybe Barbed Undertow was like a one-of as well, because it's a similar effect, but just for a different matchup, perhaps. It does need an aim counter, sadly, but you do have a lot of ways to put aim counters on things, as we've discussed. But maybe that's the reason. I don't know, but bit of a shame.
Yeah.
Any thoughts and feelings why they couldn't have put 3 in here? You know, it's not our decision, not our sort of place to say, but it does feel a bit off.
I can't say anything that isn't super cynical, so I can't give you any reason that isn't really cynical, because it doesn't cost them any more money to print 2 extra copies of Red in the Ledger instead of some other like card in the deck.
Yeah,
especially when they're printing like 3 of like Lumina Ascension and stuff for Bolton.
That's kind of exactly what I was going to say. Like the Bolton deck had 3 of everything for one. It had 3 of everything. It had 3 of like relevant Bolton reprints. I mean, obviously the only ones that like super mattered for reprints were the Lumina Ascension. Everything else was commons and rares. You had the full suite of equipment, and then you had like Saving Grace, which is a totally new card. So if we're comparing it that way, then Azalea, like the Azalea deck has Line It Up and Stone Rain, 2 completely new cards, all at full 3 copies. But I feel like what happened is they were like, okay, we want to add all of these cards, but we're running over 60, and they had all of these like support cards as well for like aim counters, things that get bonuses from aim counters. And technically this deck doesn't like, obviously Red in the Ledger is just good. Like, I'm not trying to say that it isn't just an insanely good card, but it doesn't have aim counter synergy. And I feel like maybe they either painted themselves into a corner or they whatever, but they were like running 3 copies of Red in the Ledger when you're really not like built to do the thing. Maybe it's not good enough, but I'm trying to be as charitable as possible, similar to what Kel just said. Because I mean, we have 3 Knock the Death Whistle.
Yeah, I don't think Red in the Ledger is ever not good. It's always good. Like, it's just good. Against like maybe Guardian or something, but like, yeah. I've just
thought about this now on the spot. You know, I didn't want to put too many what ifs, and you know, LSS should have done this in the Azalea Armory Deck video, because I was just wanting to do the list as it was, etc. But this Red in the Ledger should have been a Judge, Jury, Executioner, because that's a one of.
Yeah,
and that cares about aim counters. So
Agreed.
why was that not just a Judge, Jury? That seems like a bit of a weird choice.
My only reasons are very cynical. The reason would be is that Judge Judy's from a new set, and they want you to buy packs from the set to get the new card.
Yeah,
The thing that's tough too is, as I was like talking about why I thought it was, I could have sworn for a second that Judge, Jury was in this deck, and I was like, oh well, they had one card that was a one of, they needed to round that out somehow. And then I pivoted as I was talking. When I realized that it was Barbed Undertow, Red in the Ledger, and then Memorial Ground of all things.
Yeah, I mean, like, looking at the list, they could have cut like Sedation Shot. There's a bunch of cards they could have cut for Sleep Dart for the Red in the Ledger. So
Sleep
it's like
Dart's another one that doesn't care about aim counters at all. So, but yeah, I'm sure they have their reasons, whatever that may be. Looking back at Judge, Jury, Executioner, this could have been a great place for have it, because obviously this cares about an aim counter, and it has a similar effect to a certain degree. When this hits, they discard all but 1 card from their hand. That's basically only taking 1 action, but it's more of a widespread effect, because it can target Guardians as well. So you discard all their blues. So maybe you can't play a relevant attack or crackback. So maybe it could have been changed for that. I'm also looking at the border here. Judge, Jury, Executioner is also the same border as well, even though it's a legendary Azalea specialization. So going to be interesting to see how that sort of turns out as they carry on releasing things. But yeah, I reckon that could have been a good spot for it. Bit of a shame, really, but it's what it is.
Yeah.
Oh
well.
Oh well, exactly. But apart from that, I mean, there's loads of other cards as well. I think we've mentioned all of the new ones at this point.
Yeah, I think so.
The deck does include some of the most important cards that you need for any Ranger deck, and that's all of the Lace Widths in 3 ofs. So Lace of Blood Rot, Lace of Frailty, Lace of Inertia, arguably probably the best buffs for Rangers, apart from like Seek and Destroy. But Lace of Inertia does act as a Seek and Destroy light to a certain degree. But yeah, it's nice to see them include all of those in there, because they are very good from outsiders. Nice to see them also include Read the Glide Path. There's 6 of these in there, so there's 3 reds and 3 yellows. The reds are an absolute staple, just because they allow you to manipulate the top of your deck. I think the yellow ones were included in here only because you don't have Skullbone, so you need more ways to look at the top of your deck, I imagine. So those are pretty good. And then what other stuff we've got on here?
There's like commons like Ravenous Rabble.
Ravenous Rabble. Yeah, I should probably know these. I've edited the cards for the last day and a half, but here we go. Ravenous Rabble, yeah, it's a good one. Just allows you to look at the top of your deck. But in this deck composition, I think you're going to be hitting a lot of yellows and blues. So I'm not sure if it's going to be as good in this composition. The decks that are out there at the moment, they do have a lot more reds and yellows in them, like Codex of Blood Rots, and all that. Well, that's a yellow actually, isn't it? Codex of Blood Rot.
Yeah.
But the lists in general just do tend to be a lot more red and yellow heavy rather than blues. So yeah, I'm not sure if it's going to get as much. But yeah, in general, I think the list is pretty cool to play out of the box. And can't wait to be giving one of those away as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exciting too.
So in case people would just like to know, I can quickly just click through the cards. Are they all full play sets other than the ones that we talked about?
You can click through them and I can tell you what the play sets are.
Okay, so we mentioned Barbed Undertow, but I believe you said that was a one of here. Yep. So Barbed Undertow, for those who don't know, I'm not going to read off all of them, but this is just a 1-for-5 arrow. And if it has an aim counter, it gets, when it hits a hero, choose red, yellow, or blue. Until the start of your next turn, they can't pitch cards of the chosen color. So it's kind of just like resource denial kind of thing. So that's a one of. There's Bolt and Shot Red.
3 of.
Drill Shot Red.
3 of.
Infecting Shot Red, really good one.
3 of. Bill spoiler card.
Yeah. Ravenous Rabble, as we mentioned.
3 of as well.
We already talked about Red in the Ledger being a one of, so we'll skip that one. There's Sedation Shot.
That's a 3 of.
Sleep Dart.
3 of as well.
Stone Rain.
3 of, yeah.
New card. And then we just mentioned all the laces. So Lace with Blood Rot, Lace with Frailty, and Lace with Inertia.
Yep, so they're all 3 ofs.
Kind of a weird choice, but I guess it makes sense for the deck. Point the Tip.
Yeah, that's a 3 of.
Point the Tip Red, specifically. If you don't know what Point the Tip does, by the way, because I don't blame you if you don't know what it does, it's a 0 cost, ranger action, 2 block. Target face-up arrow in your arsenal gets +3, and then you put an aim counter on it and go again. So you give something +3 and an aim counter if it's face-up in your arsenal.
Yeah, so the main sort of contention points to why people don't use Point the Tip is that you can't put it in your arsenal.
Yeah, it's real bad.
And if you see it on top of the deck with Azalia, you can't put it into your arsenal with Azalia's ability and play it either. So you need to, in order for Point the Tip to work, you need to have it in your hand in order to play it onto a face-up arrow, which is quite difficult. In this deck, it might be a little bit easier to have things face up. I mean, you've got the chess piece, which can turn up an arrow face up if you established it in your arsenal the turn before. So you do have that fail safe if you don't have a face up arrow in there. So there are ways of doing it. Azalea's ability can also swap an arrow in face up with Dominate, and then you can Point the Tip. But yeah, it just seems to be one of those cards that it's been hard to jump around. So we'll see how people play with it.
The fact that a new player could blind Azalea into Point the Tip into the arsenal with this starter deck is hilarious. So if that happens to you, that sucks. I
mean, there's a lot of I mean, I'm not sure if people will want to blind Azalea in this deck, because you do have a lot of you have 6 Spire Snipings, which we'll get to. There's a lot of Spire Snipings. There's a lot of Ops. There's a lot of Scout the Periphery, which allows you to look at the top of the deck. Ravenous Rabble. So I think in most turn cycles you're going to know what the top card of your deck is, even without Skullbone.
Okay.
But we'll see.
I'm just saying, since this deck is meant for new players, that's easily something a new player could do and could end up happening. So
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on. Read the Glide Path Red.
Yeah, got 3 of those in there.
Scout the Periphery, which is another buff card. This one just lets you look at the top card of any hero's deck, and the next action card you play from Arsenal gets +3 this turn. So it actually can synergize a little bit with that one Ravenous Rabble. But yeah, Scout the Periphery Red.
3 of those as well.
Sweet. Then we have 4 yellow cards. There's Spire Sniping Yellow.
Yeah, so all of these are 3 ofs apart from Memorial Ground, which is 1.
Okay, so yeah, there's Spire Sniping Yellow. There's Line It Up, which is the new card. So great that you get 3 of those. Read the Glide Path Yellow, and then the Memorial Ground. And then finally, there's 3 blue cards in the deck. There's Infecting Shot Blue, which I kind of like. I really like a blue Infecting Shot.
Yeah, these are all 3 ofs as well.
Okay, so yeah, Infecting Shot, Spire Sniping is the other blue, and then of course, Knock the Death Whistle that has the new art or the new border that just weirds me out.
Yeah.
And yeah.
But yeah, that is the Azalea deck list, but it also comes with the tokens for Blood Rot, Inertia, and Frailty as well. So it does have those in the deck box also, because you are going to be giving people a lot of plagues with this deck, with the laces being the most important, some of the most important buffs in the deck. But yeah, I think it's pretty good. I'm definitely going to be getting given one, which is nice. But I've got getting one to be giveaway as well. So if you want to enter the giveaway for that, you just have to go onto the Azalea decklist video, which is on Go Again Gaming. Just like the video, subscribe to the channel, and then just leave a comment as to why you love Azalea and when you started playing the hero. You don't have to have been playing the hero already. Just maybe you want to, or maybe you liked it, just never got round to it. Just leave a comment, and then yeah, you'll have a chance to win it. But I think it's cool. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see, how the cards that are in this armory deck are utilized in decks at large. But I guess that's not for us schmucks to figure out, is it?
Yeah. I'm looking at the list. It looks pretty good. I'm trying to think, like, what would you need to upgrade this to, like, actually, like, good competitive? So you need a Skullbone Cross Wrap, probably a Tunic as well, 2 more Red and Ledgers, Judge Judy, and then maybe if you want to keep the theme, Deadeye, and probably more expensive stuff like Deadeye's probably expensive, but there's like Rain Razors, there's the Premeditate, and then there's Seek and Destroy as well, and those can replace some of the less optimal buff cards.
Yeah, I mean the sort of advice is if you get into any hero, just buy 3 of each of the cards. you know, if you just buy everything, and then especially if you're all in on one class, just buy everything that you need for the class. It's probably the easiest advice you can give to anyone is just buy the stuff. But like Remorseless, there's loads of things you could use. Remorseless, Codex of Frailty. There was a funny comment on the live stream. Someone said, "Oh, this doesn't have Codex in it." I'm just like, "No, it doesn't have Codex in it."
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I mean, if you were expecting Codex, that's a little much.
Yeah.
I don't know whether it was a joke or not, but they was like, "Oh, no Codex." Sad face. I'm just like, no, sorry.
Codex is another one of the expensive ones that you'll need a 3 of, and they're like what, $20-$30 or something like that.
Yeah, they're too good to ignore. They're too good to ignore, aren't they? You got things like Battering Bolt and the new, we do have another equipment as well, the Long Draw Half Glove that was released recently as well of MST. So there's loads of options now for equipments. And what I like about these decks, and just as we carry on getting cards released, is that there could be 3 ways to play Azalea now. There could be the way that a lot of people are doing it. It's just like more red line heavy of a couple of yellows here and there that are just trimming the fat as much as possible and just going burr with your arrows, but then also doing lots of numbers and interaction through Red in the Ledger, value from Codex. But there's also New Horizon Sandscour builds. Sandscour Great Bow, another bow that cares about aim counters, which is interesting. So I'm not sure whether that would coincide with this or not. It would seem like it at first glance. But we'll see. And then there's also this version, which is just aim counter heavy, massive disruption. So the more cards that get released, the more armory decks that come out that add things, gives us more ways to play the hero, which is refreshing also.
Yeah, I think aim counter strategy could be pretty cool, especially if it's as damaging as like the red line version. It might not be quite as damaging, but being able to do the damage and disruption right now specifically is very, very strong, because there's a lot of decks like Zen who just don't care what you're doing. They're just going to hit you as hard as they can, and being able to disrupt that through effects like Judge Judy or Red in the Ledger is like really, really good. Red in the Ledger just like dunks on ninja so hard. It basically dunks on like every class except for like Guardian and maybe Brute, but even Brute wants to do like multiple actions in a turn. The only one really that I can think of that just does like one big is just Guardian. Everyone else wants to do a bunch of little things too, even if it's just one attack. So
yeah, I mean, you could argue like sometimes Warrior can get around it because they have a lot of reactions, but then
yeah, and like Uzuri, because like she can do like her one reaction kind of thing, but
yeah,
it's still pretty like far between. Like I guess maybe like Wizard too. There's Wizard, anything that uses instant speed stuff, but Wizard is like on its own doing its own thing on playing a different game basically. Yeah,
they are indeed.
Yeah. So
yeah. But any more sort of closing thoughts on this particular deck or armory decks in general as they continue to come out?
I think that this one, I'm starting to come around on them in general. I still think that they're in a bit of a weird spot in terms of like being an introductory product. However, I, at least locally and personally, this is just my own perception of the situation. My local game stores have KO decks like sitting on the shelf. Allocation was not actually an issue. They didn't get like bought out fully. I know that that's not going to be the case for everybody. I know that even for the Bolton deck, I saw relatively early somebody was trying to resell each of the pieces of equipment that came in the deck for like $30 US each.
Wow.
And that's like eschewing everything else that comes in the deck. So there's probably still some amount of scalping going on with these. But locally, they've been a success story, I think. It also maybe helps that we don't have a ton of like our local scene is relatively solid, and we do get new players, but not super frequently. And I haven't been going to enough events recently to know if that number has been growing or anything like that. But again, like right now, if I look at my local game store's website to see how many they have in stock for, let's say, the KO deck, they have 7 in stock at $49 Canadian, which is, I think, like it's still a relatively high price point. But again, for an introductory product that has Savage Sash, which is just straight up the best brute like chess piece in the game, I think that's pretty reasonable. And then let's see for the Bolton deck. The long and short of it really is just that it has been a success story locally, that it hasn't been quite as bad as what people were anticipating. The Bolton deck, there's 9 in stock still.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's pretty fine. But yeah, and I think that there are some issues with them individually. Like, again, I think the reprint value in the KO deck was pretty abysmal, but the equipment were quite good to sort of balance that out. For this one, I think that some of the equipments are really good, and the two specific like new cards, main deck cards, are actually going to be like pretty solid players. I think both of those cards are quite strong. I know the Bolton deck. I think the Bolton deck has like basically no issues. Honestly, like there are upgrades to be made to the deck, but the defense reaction is like one of the strongest defense reactions maybe in the game. It's extremely good. The equipments are all good in their own right. I think the only issue there is that, like, in terms of reprint value as well, the reprints weren't really there, but I think the cards maybe make up for it. It's a little bit, they're weird because they don't really feel like a super introductory product because there are all these cards from the backlog that people still need to get. But in terms of like introducing new cards into the classes, I think they're quite good. They're weird, but I think I have an overall less negative opinion of them in general than especially when the KO deck first came out. Now that we have a couple to pull from.
Yes, if you look at them as well as a collective at the moment, I'm sure there's going to be another one on the horizon, or maybe even announced at PT Amsterdam. There's a new armory deck or something. I don't know how many they were doing per year, but I'm sure there was a few. There was maybe one more on the timeline, but I can't remember. But if you look at them each now, if you look at each deck now from an outside perspective, having some more context on what they've got, the KO deck was an interesting scenario, first of all, because it was the first one released, so we didn't know what to expect or anything. The equipment straight out of the gate was like worth buying the product alone because it was so good. Then you move on to the bolt-in deck, where again the equipment suite is very good, and you want to buy it for that. But the deck itself seems more consistent with relevant reprints of Lumina Ascension, which is a key part of the bolt-in deck. Whereas KO didn't really have any key cards, just more new stuff. And then we got the Azalea deck, which has some interesting equipments and some interesting expansion on a previous mechanic that hasn't really been delved into. So it's almost like they're expanding and giving you a new archetype almost. So each deck has felt really different in the Armory deck catalog as such. So it's gonna, I think it's gonna feel like that every time now, which gives you more sort of, again, it's not sours. It sort of makes the negativity fade away a little bit because each one's a little bit different, and we're not getting that shock value anymore of the KO deck. Oh, everyone's buying it for the sash. We're seeing a little bit more to each of these decks now. So, but yeah, I definitely got a feeling of this deck was more like an expansion to Azalea rather than an Armory deck. But I guess that's what I'm trying to get at. But yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I have softened a little bit, but I still don't love them. I don't hate them, but I don't love them. I think they're still too expensive for what they are compared to all of the other competitors on the market. And if you know me, I'm literally playing 4 card games, and I've just gotten into Vice and Cardfight Vanguard, so like 6 card games that I'm following now, and they're still like not great for what comes in them. I think at like $25 to $30 US is probably a better price. I went and pulled some stuff. So like I mentioned before, but this is like the Sylvie deck for Grand Archive. This is $50. It comes with a set of Dragon Shield sleeves, full play sets of all the cards, and it is actually like tournament competitive. Like this deck got like top 6 at a 100-player event. It's very good. And then there's like Cardfight Vanguard, and they have starter decks that are $4. $4 US. So like, wow. These are the older ones. Their newer ones are like 15, but I do like these $4 ones, which are still standard legal. But so like, I'm just saying, like compared to some other stuff that I'm getting into, they feel like they don't come with a lot of stuff. But for what they are, if you really want to play like Azalia or Flesh and Blood or whatever, and you can find them at not scalp prices, go for it. Go for it. I wish they were less expensive, but that's just where I am with it, and that I'm just gonna feel like that basically for the entire product line. Yeah, it's a strange thing as well, because the entrenched players will still buy these decks because they want the unique cards for their hero. So it's just it feels like it still feels that way as well to a certain degree, because we still want to buy it for the unique cards for our favorite classes. I did want to say that so like for Bill's LGS, and I've heard this for other LGSs in the US, they do have the product and available. But I will say for my part, for Fab Foundry here in Portland, Oregon, the KO decks immediately sold out. Their entire allocation sold out, and they were only given to established players, like the regulars. So like that's why people are scalping it sometimes, because in certain places they just don't have them, and in some places you do have them. So I don't know. It's kind of this weird. It's this weird thing.
It is a weird thing as well, because in the UK there is not one single TCG outlet or shop, even like an online store, that has Azalea decks that you can buy yet. So this is very strange. I'm just literally scrolling through the comments on the Azalea full deck list video, and someone's already said, this is all well and good, but where can I get it in the UK? And I'm just like, I don't have the answer for you, because there is no store in the UK at all. Even like we have these big like online. If you think of something like Cool Stuff Inc. in the US, it's a big, massive online retailer where you get board games, card games, whatever. They have everything. The UK equivalent of that still doesn't have it. We can't find it. So it is a very odd distribution thing, you know, as to how people in stores can get it. I'm actually planning a video with my mate Tom, who runs a game store up north.
Oh,
and he's just gonna.
I know him.
You know, yeah, Big Boss Book Club.
Yeah.
Shout out Big Boss. I'm going to be doing an episode with him, and he's just going to come on to Go Again Gaming to rant about how difficult it is to be a game store owner and how to get products.
I told him, man. Like, I was on his podcast. We were chatting, and I was like, I told him, I'm like, you're brave, man. Like, card games are my life. I would not want to be a card game like store owner. Like, that's not something I want to do. I know people who do it. It's really, really hard. I've known amazing LGSs that have had to close their doors just because the profit margins are real rough. Even if you do like the popular thing, even if you don't do like your passion thing, it's still really rough. If you're just doing, you know, Magic and Pokemon and then just doing the board game and the food, like, you know, a lot of LGSs do like what's the right word? I was gonna say consignments, but they do like food, like not cafeteria either. Whatever, they have like sandwiches and stuff, and even then it's like it's hard because the margins are better. The margins are better on food than they are on cards.
Absolutely.
So anyway, yeah, I'll look forward to that and hear him go off because I'm sure the UK has unique difficulties compared to LGSs here in the States. So yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's just one thing that that is a negative, I guess, about the interesting allocation model towards these. But hey ho, that's way out of my league. I don't have a clue what's going on with that. But Tom does. He's going to come on, rant about it. So I'm going to ask him lots of questions about it. But yeah, that is pretty much the Azalea deck list. Thanks to LSS for reaching out very short notice and saying, "As do you want to do it?" Of course I do. Got a video out. There we go. Lovely old job. It is out there now. People can get it, albeit might be quite difficult in some places, as we've just discussed.
I wonder how, like, if there's anyone listening or watching from Japan, you just had like a big, you know, debut of Flesh and Blood in Japan with Part the Mist Veil, right? I'm very curious to know if you're from Japan. I know I have a couple patrons who listen from Japan. Are the Armory decks available in Japan where you are? Like especially if you're from like Osaka or Tokyo, where there's like the scene's a little bit bigger. Like, I'd like to know. Yeah. And are they also in Japanese? That's another thing I don't actually know. I know they're doing a lot of like simultaneous releases with the Japanese stuff.
There is marketing assets on LSS's website for Japanese Azalea Armory Deck. So I think that is happening.
Oh, I still think it's expensive, but I want to buy I want to buy a Japanese Azalea Armory Deck like so bad.
I do as well. Yeah. James, send me that one instead.
yeah. Send him an English one and a Japanese one.
I've already got the USPS notification, so it's on its way. I should have asked for that, but hey ho, I can't get everything. But yeah, so that's pretty much the Azalea Armory deck. Hope you all enjoyed it. If you haven't watched the video already, go and have a look. It's very, very brief and broken down. And again, you can still enter the competition to win one as well if you just do the things that I described earlier. But apart from that, anything else going on in life in general?
Oh yeah,
as we move on to the Arsenal step.
A lot. I'm very busy, very busy with a lot of things. Yeah. As I mentioned a little bit, I recently got into Vice Shorts and Cardfight Vanguard. Vanguard a lot more. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about it, but they're two of the games out of all the games that I've played that I just never really got into for various reasons. Vanguard was one of those games where I look at the cards and they just have like a wall of text, and I was just like, I don't know if I'm going to do this. And after learning how to play both of the games at Anime Expo, and I think they're really fun and they have really cool mechanics. And I made a whole video on this that probably going to be my next 10K view video. It's already at like 9,000 or something, doing quite well, talking about why I think Vice Shorts and Cardfight Vanguard have lasted so long. And they've lasted, Vanguard, I think it was like 13 years. It's been out for 13, and then Vice has been out for 16 years. So Vice has almost been out for almost 20 years. And I'm like, these games have actually stood the test of time in periods where people were like, oh, all the games just die. So they've been around for a long time, and they have actually a lot of like pedigree. So I kind of thought about why I personally think that they had lasted that long. And one thing is just they're really actually fun. Both games let you draw multiple cards a turn, and that's one of the reasons I actually really liked Flesh and Blood to begin with. You draw 4 cards a turn, essentially, if you can play your whole hand, and Vice and Cardfight Vanguard are very similar to that. In Vanguard, you essentially draw 3 a turn once you hit your grade 3, plus a lot more, and it just feels very fun and interactive. If you like Flesh and Blood, which I assume you do because you're listening to this podcast, and you want to try like a different game or an anime game, Vanguard is like scarily similar in a lot of ways. The way you block in Vanguard is almost how you block in Flesh and Blood. You have cards with defense values in your hand, and you literally just put it from your hand on the attack the same way you block in Flesh and Blood. Except it's a little different. You only ever take 1 damage at a time, no matter how high the attack is, unless it has like a critical or something. So I don't know, it's really interesting. I've been getting into Vanguard, and all of my social media and posts have been kind of like doing very, very well. So that I've also been very like encouraged to do more Vanguard stuff. And honestly, I've just been really enjoying it. So yeah, help me descending into another card game pretty heavily, because God, the game is really fun. I played with a community member in the Discord the other night who's a Vanguard veteran, and he's playing with one of the top decks, Varga Dragris, which is a Samurai Dragon, which it's awesome, and it's as cheesy and awesome as it sounds. It's a Samurai Dragon. I almost beat him. So close. So yeah, Vanguard, I'm getting into it. I watched the whole Divine Z series, the anime series. It's only 13 episodes. It's very good. It's very endearing. I really like the characters. So yeah, I'm drinking the Vanguard Kool-Aid now. Yeah. So I will say, my last thing I'll mention for Vanguard is top tier competitive decks are like $300. So they're actually not as expensive as, they're like middle of the road in terms of how expensive the card games are. I made a post in my Discord that I was like, bro, I could sell 3 Command and Conquers and build a S tier Vanguard deck. My one Eye of Ophidia is like a fully built competitive Vanguard deck. So I'm like, you know, I could just kind of convert some of my extras over and just build into this. So yeah.
That's good thing about hobbies in general. They tend to translate between each other. You can sort of turn one into the other if you got stuff lying around, which is always good for this sort of thing. So hobbies fund other hobbies, don't they, to a certain degree, especially collectible ones, at least. If you got stuff spare, you can convert into something else.
Yep. And I'm just fortunate that I have a lot of extras, so I don't even have to sell out or anything. I'm just like, well, I have these just sitting in a binder, not doing anything. So let's make a Welstra deck, who's this space dude who's got like giant spaceship castle fortresses that shoot orbital lasers and stuff. I don't know. Vanguard's wild. It's wild. So anyway, that's my little bit about Vanguard for the week. How about anything going on with you guys? Got anything new?
If we go on, Bill.
Not really, other than the next game of the League That Means Nothing that I'm playing on Friday. That'll be fun. There's also a new league for Path of Exile that might be sucking me back in.
Yes.
They're making a lot of quality of life improvements, and the one that I think is the most important is they're implementing a currency market.
Oh, okay.
So something actually within the game that lets you trade specific currencies for other currencies, which is one of the main concerns that I think a lot of people have had for a long time about Path of Exile. Just whenever you're playing Trade League, you're like, oh, I'm running out of Chaos Orbs, or I'm running out of, now Divines used to be Exalted Orbs that people cared about. And you just have to like go down a list of people who have them for sale and see if you could get them. And it's not even guaranteed. Also, like, you could have a bunch of different types of currencies that just don't move as fast, that you can't like sell. So they're gonna, I think, implement an actual consistent, like, this is the trade ratio for these things, which I think might actually be really good for the game. So I'm gonna try it out.
Yeah, I heard the patch is like the second biggest or potentially the biggest patch they've ever done for the game. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's always been one that's been on my ever-growing list of games I want to play, but just can't get round to playing. There's so many that I've just got that I just don't get to play.
Bro, just wait for PoE 2. Wait for PoE 2. It's coming out.
What's that?
Path of Exile 2 is coming out
Right.
sometime
sequel.
soon. Yeah, it looks really good.
Sounds so good.
It's really good.
What is it? It's like an isometric Diablo style thing, is it?
Yeah, it's literally just like, you know, ARPG Diablo style game, loot, and
Slash.
the big thing that people will say about PoE is that it is very dense. Very, very dense. You look at the skill tree and it's like not a tree. It's like a skill constellation of many stars branching to the far reaches of the universe. Yeah, but
I like the sound of that.
yeah, if you
that's what Final Fantasy X has. It's like a big grid full of different nodes that you navigate to get skills and stuff. Yeah.
I'm just waiting to get. So I played PoE a decent amount like a couple years ago. I'm just waiting for PoE 2 to come out essentially, and then I'm gonna dive back in. Looks really good. You can play like the new witchy class. Looks cool.
Did just to finalize here, did either of you guys see the screenshot of Victor presenting a golden sun for 40 just to get buzzsaw trapped?
It's funny. I feel you, man. Even though I don't like Guardians, I feel you. I've been there. Buzzsaw trap.
Wow. That's another thing actually. I've been playing a bit of Riptide recently. Some of those cards as well that we went into in the Azalea deck do function for Riptide to a certain degree as well. But I've been enjoying Riptide. I'm playing him in the league that means nothing at the moment. So that's going to be coming out on my channel soon. Is my first game also with Riptide, which is quite cool. More of like a defensive trap orientated build rather than because Riptide is. There's a few other lists out there which are more aggro, but mine's definitely more trap-tied, which is quite fun to play. But apart from that, I haven't really been doing much else outside of this game at the moment. Been quite all in with it recently. Went to the cinema the other day to watch A Quiet Place Day 1, which is quite good.
Ooh.
The trailers for that spoiled A Quiet Place for me because I hadn't seen the original Quiet Place, so I didn't actually know what the thing was. I thought it was like, oh, is it Ghost or whatever? And I watched the trailer for that one, which was it played during another movie that Robin and I saw like a week or two ago. The trailer, and it just like, well, now I know what the things are, and I also know what they look like just like from the trailer, and I'm like, well, okay, well, that's kind of a bummer, but
I like the I do like the films that show you the apocalypse happen from the first day, and then it shows you how sort of society falls around it. Essentially, it's like there's a series out which is a spin-off of The Walking Dead called Fear the Walking Dead, which is another series within the same universe, but that starts off like the day the day that society goes to shit, basically. That's when they first realize the zombies are here and everyone's trying to fight it. Like the police force is trying to fight it, the people are still trying to put out the fires, and the society is still there but then crumbling as everyone's panicking to survive. I think that's quite an interesting film thing that I like.
Some of my favorite like, yeah, and then I'm gonna call them horror video games, but some of my favorite sequences in those type of games are like the opening sequence to the original Last of Us, which is basically that. Yeah. Like, 'cause you're playing as the little girl, and it's just kind of like normal, and then things start going to shit, and it's really interesting, and how things progress is really cool. It really got me like sucked into that game. And then also Resident Evil has some sequences like that as well. I think the opening sequence to Resident Evil 3, when you're playing as Jill and she's just kind of like chilling, and then Nemesis just bursts through her door, and then you see all of the people getting eaten by zombies outside, and everything is starting to happen. Yeah, cool stuff.
I think the Resident Evil games as well. Resident Evil 2 happens after 3, so I think Resident Evil
same time.
Is it same time? Is it?
Yeah. They're both they both happen in the Raccoon City like incident. Yeah.
But yeah, that's like Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, the original PlayStation 1 game. The opening cutscene to that is like literally when all the police are arriving to take down the wall of zombies, like with their shotguns and stuff. There's like an opening sequence, and that's what I like. It's just like society is still there, everyone's still in their uniforms trying to deal with the threat, but the threat is so large that nobody can stop it. It's like that the Last of Us scene. Like, I just love terror and high stakes. Terror and high stakes scenes are what really pull you in as a viewer, I think. Like that Last of Us scene when they all come out of the ground and nobody can do shit to stop it. They're all just getting destroyed, and that big bloater comes out as well, and you see the threat level of that enemy as well. It's another scene in Game of Thrones. There's an episode called Hard Home, which is where the White Walkers swarm the fort in the wildlings' homeland, and they all just get destroyed. They all get killed, and then they all get risen as dead. As I can't remember what they're called now. The Risen or something like that. But yeah, they all get decimated, and then they get revived as part of the White Walkers army. But I just love that threat level. The threat level is what really gets me invested in stuff like that. But that was a wild tangent. But there we go.
Yeah.
Threat level in movies and series. There we go.
That is, Aswin saw that, and then Robin and I and one of her friends went and saw Inside Out 2 last weekend. So about the same. About the same.
Nice. That's when you got these new emotions like anxiety and other things, haven't you? I've seen the poster. I can't remember what other emotions are in it.
Well, it's because the characters hit like puberty now, and so now she's got like all of these other things going on.
Yeah.
You know,
I think that's quite a cute little film. The first one. I haven't seen the second one, but I think
it's all right.
There's a couple of good messages in it.
Yeah, it's all right. Not my favorite of the Pixar movies, but it's not terrible either. It's fun. It is what it is. It has some of the same problems that the first one did. Is if you like look at it objective, like if you look at it, what really happens and cut out all of the little inside stuff, the characters seem kind of crazy, because everything happens and they have like not violent, but like crazy mood swings like so quickly. So if you like just did it in real time, they'd be weird. Because there's a video of someone who cut out all of that stuff from the first Inside Out, and they just showed it, and it was like pretty funny. Like the whole story is like she gets like upset and then tries to leave and then comes back home, and like that's it. Like that's the whole that's the whole thing.
That's the whole character arc. Yeah.
So
just while we're on this thread, any movies you've watched recently, Bill? So I know you're quite big into movies, aren't you?
Yeah, it's actually kind of interesting. I also saw Inside Out 2 in theaters and thought it was quite good. I think that they're just like really fun movies. And I would say has like maybe the most realistic and down-to-earth representation of a panic attack for a Disney movie, at least. It was like surprisingly like, I don't know, poignant. I thought it was really good. Recently, like last night, rewatched the original 1985 Clue movie with Tim Curry and Madeline Kahn and
banger, dude.
Christopher Lloyd. That movie rocks. It's so good.
Is any Clue enjoyers out there? What ending did you see? Because there's like a bunch of endings.
Yeah, there's 3, and when they were originally in theaters, it was just theaters were assigned a random ending of the 3.
It's so good,
which I think is pretty interesting. The version that I had just had all 3 in a row.
Oh, I see.
And my favorite one is the last one in the sequence where it turns out that Madeline Kahn, Mrs. White, was complicit, and she goes on this, like, it's the only improvised moment in the entire movie. And if nobody's seen this, I recommend that you look up like Madeline Kahn flames, because they're like, oh, isn't that right, Mrs. White, that you killed her because you were jealous or whatever? And she goes, yes, that's right, it's true. I killed her. I hated her so much. It was flames on the side of my face.
Yeah, that's the line. Yeah.
And she just like kind of keeps stumbling
Flames
over
on
her
the side of my
words
face.
until it
Yeah,
just like fades out and the other characters come back in. It's so funny. Yeah, big fan. Really love that movie. Also rewatched recently movie with Ryan Gosling and Russell Crowe called The Nice Guys. Very good movie as well. If you haven't
Never seen that one.
I'm also just kind of a big fan of Ryan Gosling. That's just a little fact about me. Yeah, let's be real. But yeah, I really like that one. That one's also a really fun watch. It's set in the 70s, and they're like or actually, is it the 70s? I think it's the 70s, and they're like a detective duo. Yeah, 1970s LA. But yeah, really good movie, so would recommend that one too.
Nice. Well, I guess since we're talking about all the movies we watched in the last couple of weeks, Robin and I also watched Ponyo again. So I just wanted to watch one of the Ghibli movies, and I was flipping through them. I'm like, which one do you want to watch? And Robin's like, oh, I love Ponyo. And I was just like, I've only seen that once. And I just remember thinking that the mother was just a bad mother, like when I saw it. And I was like, you know what, let's watch it again. So I rewatched Ponyo. And it's very pretty movie, very cute, kind of crazy animation, as you'd expect from Ghibli. Yeah, it's just good. Not my favorite Ghibli again, but still very good.
Yeah, some good films coming out.
I'm pretty basic, but Spirited Away is my favorite.
Deadpool and Wolverine's coming out soon as well. So that's another thing that I think a lot of people will be going to watch that. I think Marvel and comic book films have kind of teetered off a bit over the last couple of years. It was hard to top the Infinity Saga as a whole. You know, it just rounded off and closed off really really well for Marvel. So yeah, since then it's been a bit hit and miss, but this one looks like it's really gonna bring a lot of people back in. So I can't wait to go and see that as well. And it's just funny, and it's gory and all this, you know. So it's a bit of different vibes than what we can come to expect from normal Marvel stuff. But yeah, Deadpool is always good fun. So we're going to see that as well, I expect.
We'll probably see it. Robin has a whole bunch of like these little ticket things built up. So I don't know. We're not to get into it, but we have like, is it Cinemark or something? She's part of like this program, and every month you get like a free ticket, and they kind of like roll over. And she forgot that she had signed up for it, so now she's got like 12 that we need to use, because if she cancels her membership, they all go away. So we have to go use them. And so it's one of the reasons we went and saw Inside Out 2, is because she's got like a bunch of them, and we just need to cash them in so she can cancel her membership. So.
Yeah, I got a similar thing on my phone provider. They give you like an app that you log on to, and they give you like rewards that you can cash in. So it sounds similar to that, I imagine. But
yeah,
before this becomes a movie weekly show,
yeah, it's almost like 2 hours long now.
That is pretty much going to wrap us up for this week on the Living Legends podcast. But join us again next week to do it all over again with I imagine what would be PT Amsterdam news next week.
Yes.
So I'm sure there'll be keynote presentations, a couple of new things announced, new Pro Tour champion, new meta game perhaps. Maybe Azalia wins. Won't be with this deck though. I don't think the cards will be allowed yet because it's not technically released. I'm not sure how that works. Probably not actually.
I don't know. I don't know.
Don't know the maths on that, but yeah. So we'll be doing it all over again next week, and we need to make sure that people that are listening this far in advance, and we should probably mention it a bit more going forward, is that this will be also available on the new Living Legends podcast YouTube channel, dedicated to all of our weekly episodes and shenanigans.
Yes.
And yes, I've been the host for this week. My name's Az from Go Again Gaming, and as you mentioned, I did spoil the Azalea deck list recently, so you can go back and watch that video, and you can enter into the competition to win said deck list by liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and leaving a comment in the section below as to why you love Azalea, when you started playing, blah, blah, blah. And then you can find me on Go Again Gaming AZ on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it. That's where I will be most of the time. So I'll throw it over to Kel next.
Hello, I'm Kel, also known as Red Zone Rogue. You can find me everywhere at Red Zone Rogue. Mostly Twitter. I upload 3 to 5 times a week on YouTube about whatever card games I'm interested in, which is a lot. And if you want to go follow me on Twitter, you can see me post about other mostly card games as well. Sometimes memes, sometimes not. And that's about that. So how about Bill? Bill, where can people find you?
You can find me online. I'm Bill from the Spike Feeders. You can find me on social media at BillTSF. You can also find me on YouTube at the Spike Feeders Fab, where we do live edited gameplay content. The final episode of the Zen Goliath Gauntlet is going to be coming out relatively soon. I don't know if tomorrow or next week. I can never remember the release schedule, but that's going to be interesting. And then my episode from the first game of the League That Means Nothing is coming out on Friday, I think you said.
Yeah, it will be not this week, but next week. So the casters have to do their job on it still. So that your game is in their list to do next. So it'll be next week. Where you'll see Bill with his deck. Is it similar to the deck you run on Blade Break as well, right? Similar list or same list?
It is the same list. Yeah.
Same list. Yeah.
Nice. So yeah, if you're interested to see how that list works in sort of a more natural environment, with, you know, I don't want to say that Jay isn't. Speaking of mandatory shout out to Zen State Fab, Jay.
His game's already online. He won that game. That was a cracking game as well.
Spoilers.
He played spoilers. Well, it's been out for a week or so now. That first game. That was the first game that was released actually. Prism versus Vincet. So Jay played the Prism that you'll be playing in round 2, Kel. It's spoilers. The game's already out, so we can say that Jay won that game, but it was very good. So
the important thing is you got to see how he won that game.
Exactly. Yeah. So go and check it out. But sorry, I stole it on the end of your sign off there, Bill. But yeah, you mentioned the League That Means Nothing again. I completely forgot about it.
It's all good. But yeah, I'm going to be playing my round 2 against Roger Bodie from the M&R cast. And so it's interesting because I don't know how I'm going to match up against somebody who, for a living, makes competitive content. So we shall see.
And has multiple decent results at high level tournaments.
I got to top 2 one time in Blitz. So
with Chain, right?
With Chain, yeah, that was I miss playing Chain.
Which is basically Zen. Isn't it?
It's basically Zen. You just, instead of cats, you have unknowably awful shadow creatures, and chains. So
love it. But yeah, so this podcast will be migrating over to a different YouTube platform at least, but obviously the audio version of listeners will still be able to find us in a normal place. But yeah, go and check that out when you can. Like and subscribe over there and do all that good stuff. And we'll see you to do it all over again next time on the Living Legends podcast. Cheers, folks. Thanks for the ramble.
Bye.